On this Versus, I'm comparing two water-soluble gold block printing inks, one by Blick and the other by Speedball. These are both inexpensive student-grade inks. Going into this comparison, I didn't have high expectations for either of them producing a shimmery, metallic finish. But I wanted to see for myself, and as I worked with them, I ended up developing a galaxy brain theory about metallic inks. Let's get into it. I carved a test plate out of an easy cut block. I divided it into 3 sections: uncarved at the top, a section with deeper carved bold lines, and a section with shallow cut detail lines. Hopefully, these will give you some idea of how they perform under different situations. For the paper, I'm using basic acid-free 100-pound printing paper in both white and black. White will let us see how the gold colors compare with each other, while the black should make it easier to detect any differences in the metallic reflect or shimmer effects. We're going to start with Blick. First, I squeeze out some of the ink and then warm it up a bit by spreading it with the palette knife. Then I roll the ink out on this inking surface until it is smooth and tacky. When it makes this sound, I know it's ready to ink up the test plate. I roll the ink on the test plate in a few directions to get good coverage. Once the test plate is ready, I position it on the press bed and place a piece of the white paper on top. I've included other pieces of the same easy cut block on the press bed at the top and bottom of the test plate to avoid too much wear and tear on the press blankets. If you'd like more details about why I'm doing this, check out the video on me remembering how to block print. I'll link it in the description box below. Now I'm running the press bed through my little press. I'll show you the print I got in a minute. I re-ink the test plate and reposition it on the press bed, this time for the black paper. I run it through the press, and I'm done. I basically repeated that exact printing process 3 more times, so I'll spare you the repetition. What I am going to show you is how the Blick ink looks side by side with the Speedball ink while I was preparing the ink to roll on the test plate. The Blick is on the left and the Speedball is on the right. Both inks benefited from getting warmed up by the palette knife. The textures were quite similar, very smooth and very easy to spread out evenly, which helped with picking the ink up on the brayer. Both inks took about the same amount of time to roll out, and as I worked with them, both inks felt on the drier side, with a fine and smooth texture. They both applied evenly to the test plate. Let's take a look at the prints on the white paper. The Blick on the left has a slightly deeper gold color tone than the Speedball on the right. Both have pretty even color on the uncarved section, and had fairly sharp definition on the bold line section. You'll notice a little smearing on both of them on the shallow cut detail section. I think it's because neither ink is very sticky, and when I was lifting the paper off the test plate, the ink slid around instead of holding the paper to it. That may be due to my poor paper handling technique, but these are inks that are often used by beginners to the medium, so it's a little disappointing that they are both prone to smearing around details. Let's look at these inks on black paper. The Blick on the left is more visible than the Speedball on the right, but the Speedball ink looks more even in the print. Neither has much opacity, and the overall effect on both is grainy, with a halo of ink defining the outside edge. I really don't see any shimmer or metallic effects on either of them. The next round of testing I decided to do was making an approximately 50-50 mix of ink and ink extender. Ink extender works to make inks more translucent while maintaining the thickness of the ink for printing. I used the same ink extender by Speedball for both of them. Each ink mixed together well with the extender, making both inks feel more fluid and wet. When rolling them out, the inks continued to feel wetter and stickier, and took more time to roll out into the smooth, even texture I wanted before I rolled them on the test plate. By the time I finished rolling each ink, the texture and application on the test plate was nearly identical. Let's look at the prints. First, on white paper. The Blick on the left and the Speedball on the right have very similar gold colors. If I'm being really precise, I'd say the Blick is slightly warmer toned, and the Speedball has a touch of greenishness. But on another day in a different light, I might say something different. While there is not anything close to a metallic look to these gold inks, the Blick does have the tiniest reflective sheen when the light hits it. And now the black paper. The Blick on the left has even coverage over the whole block, while the Speedball looks a bit more patchy. Both did well with the uncarved and bold striped sections of the test plate, but the detailed pattern gets lost somewhat from smearing on the Blick and from the patchiness of the Speedball. To my surprise, both look more like a metallic ink when mixed with the extender. And the Blick once again has a touch of reflective sheen. I have a bit of a theory as to why the ink plus ink extender has a more metallic look than the ink right out of the tube. I'm not a pigment specialist or an art materials scientist, so feel free to ignore this. Here's my theory. Both of these inks are very dense, and I noticed they look pretty dark when they come out of the tube. They only started to look a little more like gold when I spread them out with a palette knife. I think when they get blended with the ink extender, the extender spreads out the golden pigment even more, exposing individual pigment particles to more light, which lets each particle get a little more room to be reflective instead of being mushed up right against each other. Kind of like how sequins look super sparkly when they're spread out over a surface, and less sparkly if they are stacked one on top of the other. What do you think? Let me know your theories in the comments. These two inks are extremely similar. So similar that when I was filming the final prints, I got confused which ink produced which print. Thank goodness for my video footage. The gold colors are nearly identical. The textures are very similar out of the tube, and basically the same when blended with the ink extender. While neither one is what I would consider to be a metallic ink, the Blick did just edge out the Speedball for some light reflectiveness. And the Blick seemed to be able to reveal that minor shimmer from being mixed with the Speedball ink extender, so any worries I had about Speedball getting an edge from mixing with the same branded ink extender are gone. I think these block printing inks are basically indistinguishable, so if you have one, you don't really need to get the other. Thanks so much for being here. I'm pleased you made it this far, and I would truly appreciate you liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Let me know if you found any actually metallic block printing inks out there. I'd love some recommendations. See you in the next one.